Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie and this is Catherine the 19th, the channel where we talk about living the creative life. Today, I wanted to chat about how to price your freelance videography work. Of course, this can be applicable to really any kind of freelance work, but my experience is in videography for the most part. I also do some photography and some other social media kind of web design work. It can be really difficult to figure out how to price your freelance work, especially when you're just starting out. You've only ever worked kind of part-time jobs for minimum wage. It's really hard to know, what do I charge people for me to do this? Especially when it's a hobby, it can feel like, oh, someone actually wants to pay me to do this? What do I charge them? So I'm hoping today I can give you a few pointers on where to start with this and how I kind of figured out what I need to be charging people for my videography work. There are two main approaches to pricing any kind of freelance work, and that is an hourly wage or value-based pricing. There are definitely pros and cons to both of these systems, so I think that the best way to do it is to kind of take from both sides to create your own unique pricing system. Just to go over them both quickly, an hourly wage is exactly what it sounds like. You pick a price for what your time is worth per hour, and you charge your client based on the number of hours that you spend working on a particular project. This is definitely the most kind of straightforward and traditional way of pricing freelance work, and it's probably the easiest to wrap your head around when you're first getting started because it's the way that most people are used to getting paid. Meanwhile, value-based pricing is when you assign a value to the project that you're working on and charge your client that amount, no matter how much time you spend on it. Value-based pricing can be pretty complex because there's a lot of factors that you're going to take into consideration when doing this, such as what is the value of the project to the client. Let's just throw out a hypothetical situation for an example. Let's say you're a freelance videographer and you have been hired to create the videos for someone's online e-course. You're going to be filming them, doing all of their presentation work of whatever they're teaching, and then editing it, and then they are going to upload it and charge people to watch those videos. You want to think about how much they're charging for their e-course and how many people are going to be watching it, because if this is like an $1,000 e-course that hundreds of people are going to be buying, you have to consider that these videos are worth a lot of money to the person who's hiring you. And so in that situation, you might charge quite a bit for it. Let's say though in another instance, you're creating a promotional video for a small business who's going to share it on their social media profiles. They probably don't have a ton of people watching them just yet, so they might only get a couple hundred views on that video and maybe convince one or two customers to purchase their product through that video. That video is not going to be worth as much to them because they aren't going to be making as much money from it, and so you might charge them less for it. There are pros and cons to both of these pricing systems. In the value-based system, you might charge, that small business only a couple $100, maybe $1,000 for the video that you're producing for them. Meanwhile, you might spend, tons of hours working on it and therefore not really get paid for the amount of time you put into it. On the other hand, with the hourly wage system, you may quote someone for a video project that ends up taking way less time than you think it's going to, but in the end, you're still providing them the same value that you had promised in the beginning, but you're getting paid way less for it. That's why I think it's a good approach to try to balance both of these when you're giving your clients a quote and invoicing them. When I'm deciding how much I'm going to charge a client for a video project, I start by thinking about how many hours it's going to take me. I have a general price set for what I'd like to get paid per hour, and so I estimate how long it usually takes me to film and how long it usually takes me to edit and export and all that kind of thing, and sort of set that as the base price. If you don't have much experience with doing video projects for clients, think about the hobby work that you've done. If you've made videos for YouTube or for school projects, think about how long it took you to shoot versus how long it took you to edit. In general, I go off an assumption of editing time takes double what shooting time took, but it really depends on the kind of work you're doing. The kind of editing that I'm doing is a very natural, clean-cut sort of editing. It's not a lot of special effects, it's not a lot of masking people out and all that kind of stuff, so it doesn't take me that long, but depending on what you're doing, it might take you a lot longer than that. Whatever your situation, try to think of what your standard is for shooting time versus editing, and then use that as variables for multiplying when a client comes to you with a specific project. Another big piece of advice I have is to consider the cost associated with your equipment. This is something that I did not think about often enough when I first started doing freelance videography, because I had had my cameras for a while and I was making YouTube videos, so I thought, oh, I already own them. They're free. That part's free. but that is not true. Just because you might be using them for personal reasons doesn't mean that it's not a cost associated with your business. Cameras and camera equipment are expensive, and so video work is, expensive. You need to think about how much you spent on your camera and your lenses, your editing software, your laptop, your internet, all of these things that you probably would have had anyway. It's still a cost associated with your business, and if you are using them for a service you're providing, those clients should be helping to pay for that equipment. I don't have any specific formulas for how much, what fraction of your camera, each project should be helping to pay for. But in general, just keep that in mind and remember that when someone is paying for your video work, they are not just paying for your time. They're also paying, 1, for your expertise, but 2, for all of the equipment that you've spent money on. The third thing that I like to consider when thinking about pricing for my projects is something I alluded to earlier, and that is the value that you are providing to the customer. Video projects are part of the wider creative, knowledge economy. And in that world, you aren't just paying for someone's labor, you're also paying for their creativity, their ability to, create something unique. And so don't just limit yourself to the very mathematical formulas of, time and equipment costs, because you have something unique to offer and people are paying for that instead of just paying, some 12-year-old who can film something on an iPad. Like I said, think about what this video is really, monetarily worth to your client. If they are going to be making millions off of a video you make for them, make sure you are charging them well for it. Just because you could make it on the cheap doesn't mean that you should, because your creative abilities are a really important component of them making money, and so don't sell yourself short. Overall, try to keep all those things in consideration, but then also remember that every project is different. I've, for the past little while now, been really wanting to kind of put together a menu of options for my clients that have straightforward, price points, but the problem with that is everyone has something different that they need, and so I really just come up with a new quote for every person because everyone's needs are different and the amount of time that it's going to take you on each project is different. So there's not really a cookie cutter answer for everything. Overall, my advice is to not sell yourself short. I think so often, especially beginner, creative freelancers can think that their time isn't worth as much as it actually is, or that the product they're producing, they could have done it for free, so it's really not that valuable, but that is not the case. Remember that your time is valuable, your creativity is valuable, and you do have a skill and you have a special expertise that someone, is willing to pay you for. So don't forget that. I hope this video was useful for you if you are starting out as a freelancer. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have any other questions about pricing or about getting into the freelance videography business, and hopefully I can help you out. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate the support, and of course, hit the subscribe button below so that you don't miss any of my future videos. I talk about videography, photography, travel, and all things creative here on this channel, and I upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so make sure that you don't miss out. As always, I love you all. I hope you're following your dreams, and I'll see you next time. Bye!